On a summer Sunday in Yellowstone National Park, the tranquility of the wild was suddenly disrupted by a clash between man and beast. A 47-year-old visitor from Cape Coral, Florida, approached a bison, an act that, though common among curious tourists, often comes with serious consequences. The massive animal, feeling threatened, responded swiftly and powerfully, goring the man. He was left with minor injuries and quickly treated by emergency medical personnel. While he survived the incident, it marked yet another reminder of the dangers that lurk behind Yellowstone's breathtaking beauty. This was the first bison-related injury of the year, but the fourth since 2023. The pattern is as troubling as it is predictable. In a place where nature reigns supreme, the rules are simple. Keep your distance, respect the wildlife, and never assume safety in close proximity to animals that, despite their seemingly slow pace and docile appearances, are still wild at heart. The recent incident adds to a growing list of unfortunate encounters. Just last year, an 83-year-old woman from South Carolina found herself on the wrong end of a bison's horns after getting too close. The force of the animal lifted her nearly a foot off the ground, leaving her with serious injuries. A few months earlier, a man under the influence of alcohol had harassed a herd and even kicked one of the bison, a reckless act that ended, unsurprisingly, in him being injured. There was also the tragic case of a newborn bison calf that paid the price for human interference. A man, perhaps believing he was helping, touched and disturbed the calf. As a result, the young animal was rejected by its herd. Park officials, unable to reintroduce it safely, had no choice but to euthanize it. The man was later convicted of disturbing wildlife, a charge that speaks volumes about the importance of boundaries in the park. Yellowstone is not just another national park, it's a living museum of American wildlife, home to the largest population of bison on public land in the country. These animals are survivors, symbols of a species that once teetered on the brink of extinction. In the late 1800s, bison were hunted so aggressively that their numbers plummeted from an estimated 30 million to fewer than 1,000. The devastation was not accidental. Historians and researchers agree that U.S. government policies encouraged the slaughter, in part to disrupt the lives of Native American tribes that depended on the bison for sustenance, clothing, tools, and shelter. By 1902, only about 24 bison remained in Yellowstone. What followed was a century-long conservation effort that stands today as one of the most celebrated triumphs in American environmental history. Thanks to careful management and strict protections, Yellowstone's bison population has rebounded dramatically. Today, over 5,000 of these majestic animals roam the park's valleys and grasslands, often crossing into neighboring parts of Montana. Despite this success, the bison's resilience comes with a cautionary tale. They are not zoo exhibits, nor are they gentle giants. Bison can weigh up to 2,000 pounds and run at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour, 3 times faster than the average human. They are protective of their space, unpredictable, and highly responsive to perceived threats. Most injuries happen because visitors ignore warning signs, both literal and metaphorical, lured by the false belief that proximity equals safety. The National Park Service repeatedly urges visitors to keep at least 25 yards away from bison at all times. Still, each year brings new stories of people who cross the invisible line, sometimes for a photo, sometimes out of ignorance, and sometimes simply because they forget that Yellowstone isn't a petting zoo. It's a slice of the wild, preserved in all its raw, untamed glory. The man injured this year may have walked away with only minor wounds, but others haven't been so lucky. A vacation meant to celebrate life and family turned into heartbreak when Carol Sue Kirkin, a beloved figure from Rochester Hills, Michigan, met a sudden and tragic end during a safari in Tanzania. At 75, Carol had lived a life full of purpose, energy, and compassion, and her loss sent shockwaves through the community she had devoted herself to for decades. Carol was more than a professional. She was a force of nature. A registered nurse, she had extended her influence far beyond healthcare, working as a physician services representative and doctor recruiter for Kittenton Hospital Medical Center. improving lives in ways both direct and indirect. She co-founded the Women's Fund of Rochester Hills, raising substantial donations to support women and children in need, volunteered at the North Oakland YMCA, and offered support to military families. In every role she undertook, Carol brought a rare combination of empathy, intellect, and determination, inspiring those around her to act not out of obligation but from genuine admiration. She was also a national vice president with Arbonne Cosmetics Company, where she taught educational classes and quietly led by example. Colleagues remembered her presence as invigorating, her sincerity compelling. When she spoke, people listened, drawn by her unwavering passion and dedication to causes greater than herself. Travel was another of her joys. She documented her adventures with vivid posts, sharing the wonders of the world through the eyes of someone truly alive to every moment. In August of 2017, Carol embarked on a family safari in Tanzania with her son, Robert, a university dean from Corpus Christi, Texas. The trip was meant to be a joyful exploration of Africa's wildlife. On August 5th, while observing a group of hippos in their natural habitat, the idyllic day turned into an unimaginable tragedy. Hippos, despite their seemingly docile, herbivorous nature, are fiercely territorial and notoriously dangerous, responsible for hundreds of human deaths each year. Their speed, power, and unpredictability leave little room for escape. Carol's encounter was sudden and fatal. Details remain limited, but it is known that she died swiftly, in her son's arms, leaving no time for intervention. Just hours before, she had posted about witnessing the great migration of hippos and bull elephants, her excitement and wonder radiating through the words. That same spirit of curiosity and fearlessness, so emblematic of her adventurous soul, brought her to the very edge of life that day. The news devastated her family and community. Social media filled with tributes, disbelief, and grief. Her grandson, Eric Strickler, called her the greatest grandmother anyone could ask for. Friends described her as a dynamo, a rocket of passion and energy who lifted everyone around her simply by being present. Those who had served alongside her on boards, committees, and philanthropic projects remembered her quiet yet relentless leadership and her tireless drive to make a difference. Carol's obituary captured the magnitude of the loss of a woman who had lived fully, determined to reach a century, and who was taken far too soon. Survived by her husband, Bill, 3 children, and 5 grandchildren, her absence left a void, both personal and communal. Yet, her legacy endures. Through every life she touched, every cause she championed, Carol Sue Kirkin remains a reminder that one person's passion, energy, and love can ripple outward, leaving an indelible mark on a world now painfully aware of her absence. The African wilderness is both breathtaking and merciless, a place where nature reigns supreme and danger lurks just beneath the surface, sometimes quite literally. For Dr. Richard K. Root, a man who had dedicated his life to saving others, the wild had something far more sinister in store. A world-renowned infectious disease specialist, mentor, and humanitarian, Dr. Root had traveled across the globe, tackling the deadliest bacterial infections and mentoring the next generation of medical professionals. But on a seemingly peaceful day in 2006, his extraordinary journey came to a horrifying and violent end. Dragged into the depths of the Limpopo River by a giant prehistoric predator. At 68 years old, Dr. Root was far from retired. His passion for medicine and education remained as strong as ever. When the University of Pennsylvania's Infectious Disease Department extended an invitation for him to help train doctors in Botswana, he didn't hesitate. The project was crucial. Botswana was in the grips of a devastating HIV/AIDS epidemic, and Dr. Root was there to help equip local medical teams with the knowledge and skills to combat it. His assignment would last 2 months, and in that short time, he was determined to make a difference. But amidst the hard work, there was also time to take in the stunning beauty of the region, a land teeming with wildlife, ancient landscapes, and vast rivers where predators still ruled. And so, on March 19, 2006, Dr. Root and his wife, Rita, embarked on what was meant to be a simple, guided canoe safari through the Tule Nature Reserve, a decision that would become his last. The canoes drifted peacefully down the Limpopo River, the soft murmur of water mixing with the distant calls of birds and the rustling of leaves in the towering riverbanks. The sun was bright overhead, glistening off the surface, painting the illusion of a serene and tranquil moment. But beneath the murky depths, something was watching, waiting. Dr. Root sat in the lead canoe, accompanied by a seasoned guide, a man who had likely seen his fair share of Africa's dangers. His wife, Rita, followed in another canoe, capturing moments of their adventure on camera. The photos she took just minutes before the attack showed Dr. Root at ease, completely unaware that he was about to become prey. Then the river erupted. A monstrous crocodile, measuring between 13 and 15 feet, launched itself from the depths. In a single, calculated move, the reptile lunged onto the canoe, sinking its dagger-like teeth into Dr. Root's body. The canoe shook violently, but did not overturn. The beast didn't need to capsize it. It had already won. Within seconds, Dr. Root was ripped from his seat and dragged into the water. A scream echoed across the river. His wife, just yards behind, could only watch in horror as her husband disappeared beneath the surface. And then, silence. Panic set in. The guide and other members of the group searched frantically, scanning the water for any sign of movement, but the river had already swallowed him whole. In that instant, Dr. Root, a man who had spent decades fighting deadly diseases, saving lives, and training future doctors, had become nothing more than another victim of Africa's unforgiving wilderness. Word spread quickly. Authorities and local trackers launched a full-scale search, scouring the banks of the Limpopo River for any sign of his body. Days passed. Nothing. For 4 long days, hope dwindled. His wife clung to the desperate possibility that somehow he had survived. Then, on the 4th day, the river gave up its secret. Dr. Root's lifeless body was found near the site of the initial attack, his remains bearing the unmistakable signs of a crocodile's ferocious grip. The man, who had spent a lifetime fighting death, had lost his final battle to a silent, ancient killer. Dr. Richard K. Root was no ordinary man. He was a pioneer in infectious disease research, a respected educator, and a mentor to countless physicians across the world. His work in sepsis management and bacterial infections helped shape the modern medical understanding of some of the deadliest illnesses known to humankind. But even the greatest minds are no match for nature's raw and unpredictable brutality. His death sent shockwaves through the medical community. Tributes poured in from colleagues, students, and institutions worldwide. He had spent a lifetime saving lives, yet in the end, no one could save him. His tragic death serves as a haunting reminder of the unrelenting power of the natural world. In the wilderness, even the most accomplished, intelligent, and respected individuals are still just another part of the food chain. The Nile crocodile is a master of ambush, a prehistoric killer that has remained unchanged for millions of years. With crushing jaws, capable of exerting over 5,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, and the terrifying death roll, a brutal part, it is one of the most feared predators on the planet. Each year, hundreds of people fall victim to these ambush hunters, especially in the rivers of Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. But it is rare for someone as high-profile as Dr. Root to be among them. Perhaps that's what makes his death so haunting. It wasn't a disease, an accident, or old age that claimed him. It was something far more primal, a silent predator in the water, a moment of peace shattered in an instant, a man of science, swallowed by the wild. And in the end, no cure, no knowledge, no expertise could save him. What was meant to be a peaceful safari outing in Zambia turned into a tragic reminder of how unpredictable wildlife encounters can be. Juliana Glay Tourneau, a 64-year-old tourist from New Mexico, was visiting Zambia and took part in a guided safari near the Maramba Cultural Bridge in Livingstone. The group stopped as a herd of elephants crossed the road. a fairly common occurrence in the region and usually a highlight for many visitors. However, what happened next ended in tragedy. According to initial police reports, an elephant approached the vehicle and pulled Juliana out before fatally trampling her. But this version of events was later questioned by the Livingstone Tourism Association. In their statement, they clarified that the tourists had exited the vehicle, something strictly against national park rules. They emphasized that such an attack, where an elephant pulls someone from a vehicle, has never been reported before in Africa or Asia. Regardless of the exact circumstances, the incident has raised concerns and conversations around safari safety and the importance of following guidelines when observing wild animals. This was the second fatal elephant encounter involving a U.S. tourist in Zambia this year. Back in March, 79-year-old Gail Matson from Minnesota lost her life during a game drive in Zambia's Kafue National Park. In that case, a charging elephant flipped over the safari vehicle she was riding in. Gail died in the incident, and 5 others were injured. A video that later surfaced showed the elephant approaching quickly, with someone in the vehicle saying, "It's coming fast," just before the animal made contact. The vehicle tried to stop, but the elephant hooked it with its tusks and rolled it over. Gail's daughter later shared on Facebook that her mother had died in a tragic accident while on her dream adventure. In light of these events, Zambian authorities have reminded tourists and tour operators to exercise extra caution around wildlife. The core message is simple. Wild animals, while incredible to observe, are still wild and unpredictable. Parks across Africa have clear rules to help keep visitors safe, like staying inside safari vehicles at all times and keeping a safe distance from animals. These rules aren't just for show. They're based on years of experience and observation. Zambia, along with neighboring countries like Zimbabwe and Botswana, is also seeing growing elephant populations. With that comes an increased risk of human-wildlife encounters, especially in areas where tourism is on the rise. It's worth noting that safaris are generally very safe when rules are followed and guides are respected. Thousands of people enjoy them every year without incident. However, these recent tragedies are a reminder of why safety protocols matter and why no photo or close-up look is worth risking a life. If you ever find yourself on a safari, remember, the experience is about observing and respecting wildlife in their natural habitat. Staying alert, following your guide's instructions, and keeping your distance are essential steps to ensuring a safe and memorable adventure. This incident, while heartbreaking, can help educate future visitors and reinforce the importance of responsible tourism, something that benefits both humans and the animals we travel so far to see. Juliana Gley-Tourneau had traveled thousands of miles from her home in New Mexico to Zambia, driven by her love for adventure and her devotion to spreading her faith. At 64, she had already lived a life filled with purpose, raising her children, caring for aging parents, teaching women about biblical hospitality, and dedicating herself to her church community. But this trip was different. This trip was meant to combine her love for travel with a mission to witness Africa's wildlife and bring inspiration to those around her. On the afternoon of June 19, 2024, Juliana and her group were near the Morima Cultural Bridge in Livingston, marveling at a herd of elephants slowly moving through the area. Elephants were majestic, gentle giants, a common and cherished sight in Zambia. Yet, even the most familiar creatures could harbor a dangerous unpredictability. As their safari vehicle slowed to allow the tourists a closer view, the air was filled with awe, cameras clicking, whispers of wonder. Then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. According to one account, one of the elephants grew aggressive without warning. Juliana, seated and enthralled by the moment, was suddenly thrown from the vehicle. Panic erupted around her. Before anyone could react, the massive animal trampled her, leaving fatal injuries in its wake. It all happened in a matter of seconds at 5:50 p.m., a moment that would forever haunt those who witnessed it. However, another version of events emerged. The Livingstone Tourism Association disputed this account, stating that the tragedy occurred after tourists had left their vehicle, violating park regulations. They insisted that no record existed of an elephant pulling someone from a vehicle, calling attention to how unpredictable human-wildlife interactions could become in shared spaces. Elephants are intelligent, social creatures, often forming tight-knit family groups, yet even the calmest of them can turn dangerous if startled or feeling threatened. In Zambia, as in other parts of the world, human activity increasingly intersects with their natural habitats, and the results can be tragic. Authorities responded quickly, confirming Juliana's death and noting that it marked the second fatal elephant attack in the country that year. Locals expressed growing concern about the rising presence of elephants near residential and tourist areas, highlighting the fine line between fascination and danger. For Juliana's family back in New Mexico, the news was incomprehensible. A devoted wife, mother, and community pillar, she had always lived to inspire and care for others. Her sudden death left a void that words could scarcely describe. Efforts were made to return her body home, but the heartbreak lingered. A stark reminder that even in moments of wonder, nature's raw power is never to be underestimated. The African wilderness is breathtaking, yet unforgiving. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and the wild reminds you who is truly in control. In 2018, a 22-year-old woman learned this in the most horrifying way imaginable. What was meant to be a casual visit to a South African game reserve turned into a nightmare, a chilling moment where human curiosity met nature's raw and lethal power. She wasn't supposed to be there. The woman, whose identity was never publicly revealed, had accompanied a friend to a lion sanctuary on the 3,200-acre Dinokeng Big Five Game Reserve, just outside Pretoria. The visit was informal. She was tagging along while her friend interviewed the camp's manager for an assignment. The reserve was home to Kevin Richardson, the so-called Lion Whisperer, a world-renowned conservationist who had forged an incredible bond with some of the most powerful predators on Earth. For the woman, this was a rare chance to see lions up close, majestic, awe-inspiring creatures in their natural environment. But what she didn't know was that something was already in motion, something deadly. On that fateful day, Kevin Richardson had taken 3 of his lions out for their routine walk. It was part of their exercise and stimulation regimen, a controlled interaction between man and beast that Richardson had done countless times before. Everything seemed normal. The lions, powerful yet familiar, strolled through the reserve as Richardson and a colleague monitored them closely. Then, everything changed in an instant. A lioness, sleek and muscular, locked eyes on her target. An impala, a swift and delicate antelope, had entered the clearing. The lioness's instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, she exploded into a full-speed chase, her powerful muscles rippling as she pursued the terrified prey. But somewhere along that pursuit, the chase veered off course. The impala darted, zigzagging through the landscape. The lioness, fully consumed by the thrill of the hunt, followed, covering a staggering 2 to 2.5 kilometers in mere moments. And then, she encountered something unexpected. The young woman. She had been standing outside the fenced area of the camp, blissfully unaware of the approaching danger. She and her friend had been snapping photos, capturing the raw beauty of the African wilderness. She never saw it coming. The lioness did. There was no time to react. Before the woman could turn, before she could even scream, the lioness struck. With a force that could shatter bones, the massive predator pounced, knocking her to the ground. The world went silent for a split second, then erupted into shrieks of terror. Her friend stood frozen in horror, watching the attack unfold. The lioness, driven by primal instinct, did what apex predators do. Teeth sank into flesh, claws tore through skin. It was over in moments. Her lifeless body lay still, the golden brown predator towering over her, breathing heavily, blood staining its powerful jaws. The African bush, once peaceful, was now eerily silent. Paramedics raced to the scene, their sirens piercing through the stillness of the reserve. Desperate efforts were made to save her, but the injuries were catastrophic. Nick Dahlman, a paramedic spokesman, would later describe the scene as horrific. The injuries were very severe, he said. It was a deadly attack. Her friend, though physically unharmed, was in a state of complete shock. The nightmare had played out right in front of her eyes, and she could do nothing to stop it. Kevin Richardson was devastated. This wasn't a rogue attack. The lioness hadn't hunted the woman out of malice. She had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Richardson took to social media to express his sorrow. "I am devastated, and my heart goes out to this young woman's family," he wrote. He explained that his team had sent out notifications that they were walking the lions that day, as they always did. The lioness had been chasing an impala. This was not supposed to happen. Dinokeng management was quick to clarify. The lion involved in this fatality was not one of the wild, free-roaming lions of the Dinokeng Game Reserve, but that didn't matter. A woman was dead. The tragedy cast a dark shadow over Richardson's sanctuary. His reputation as the lion whisperer, a man who had spent his life building trust with these apex predators, was suddenly under scrutiny. Just weeks before the attack, supermodel Cara Delevingne had posed with one of Richardson's lions for a glamorous photo shoot at the sanctuary. In a heartfelt post, she had called the experience humbling, marveling at the chance to see such magnificent creatures up close. Now, that same world of intimate encounters and breathtaking beauty had revealed its darker, more brutal side. Visitors still come to Richardson's camp. They still take safari drives, still pay to volunteer and experience the thrill of being near some of the world's most powerful predators. But the woman's death serves as a chilling warning. In the wild, even the most experienced handlers know, lions do not reason. They do not hesitate. They do not forgive mistakes. One moment of distraction, one misstep, one wrong place at the wrong time, and in the blink of an eye, you become the hunted. In May 2013, a tragic event unfolded at South Lakes Wild Animal Park in Dalton-in-Furness, a quiet area in South Cumbria. Sarah McClay, a 24-year-old keeper originally from Glasgow, lost her life in a horrifying encounter with one of the park's Sumatran tigers. Known for her dedication and experience working with big cats, Sarah had spent more than 2 years at the zoo, which she considered a privilege. However, on this day, a fatal failure in safety protocols turned her passion into tragedy. The tiger, named Padang, was able to escape through a series of unlocked and malfunctioning gates inside the tiger house. These gates were designed to keep the dangerous animals and their keepers separated at all times, featuring lockable, self-closing doors meant to prevent any accidental encounters. But a defective bolt on one of these gates failed to close properly, allowing the tiger to enter the corridor where Sarah was working. The attack was brutal and swift, leaving Sarah with multiple deep puncture wounds to her neck and body that were unsurvivable. Despite being airlifted to a hospital, she was pronounced dead shortly after the incident. The loss sent shockwaves through the community. Her colleagues and family, all of whom struggled to come to terms with the sudden and violent nature of her death. Following the incident, an inquest was held in Kendall, where a jury delivered a narrative verdict. They found that the tiger had gained access to Sarah by entering through 2 open sliding gates within the tiger house before moving through the door that led to the corridor. These lapses in security were not simply human error, but were tied to systemic problems with the zoo's safety systems, particularly the faulty door mechanism that failed to close securely. The zoo, which has since been renamed South Lakes Safari Zoo, admitted to breaching the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. It acknowledged that it had failed to ensure that people who were not staff were kept out of harm's way, and, crucially, that it had not addressed the risks associated with the defective door bolt prior to the attack. The case revealed a troubling picture of inadequate safety measures and poor risk management within the park. Legal proceedings culminated in a significant fine for the zoo, nearly £300,000, with £42,500 of this specifically related to another health and safety breach from July 2014, when a keeper fell from a ladder while preparing to feed the big cats. In addition, the zoo was ordered to cover £150,000 in prosecution costs over the next decade, underscoring the seriousness of its safety failings. David Gill, the zoo's owner, faced individual charges related to the same allegations, but was formally acquitted. Nonetheless, the burden of responsibility remained heavily on the zoo as an institution. Padang, the tiger involved in the fatal attack, was kept alive for some time after the incident, as Sarah's family requested that he not be put down. However, due to his age, the tiger was euthanized a year later, closing a difficult chapter for those involved. The judge overseeing the case made it clear that the tiger's ability to enter Sarah's workspace should never have been possible. He stated that the malfunctioning door mechanism was a substantial contributing factor that directly led to the tragedy. It was a predictable risk that the zoo had failed to mitigate, leading to fatal consequences. The aftermath of the incident saw Sarah's family grappling with immense grief and the painful process of healing. While the guilty plea from the zoo brought some measure of closure, it could not erase the loss or the sense of shock felt by those who loved her. Her family expressed a mixture of relief and vindication, as the case highlighted that the blame did not lie with Sarah, but rather with the zoo's unsafe working conditions. Sarah's brother was particularly vocal in pointing out that the zoo had been punished appropriately for its failures, and that it was fortunate the tragedy had not resulted in more loss of life. The case left the zoo at a crossroads. It needed to either implement serious improvements to safety measures or face the possibility of closure. This tragic story serves as a powerful reminder of the critical importance of rigorous safety standards in places that house dangerous animals. It highlights how even small oversights, like a defective bolt, can lead to devastating consequences. The loss of Sarah McClay, a dedicated and experienced keeper, underscores the human cost when safety is compromised. Her death remains a somber lesson in the responsibilities wildlife parks carry to protect those who work tirelessly to care for some of the world's most powerful creatures. On a warm August morning in 2020, the sun rose over Limpopo, South Africa, casting long shadows across the Thorny Bush River Lodge. It was meant to be an ordinary day for Sheldon Hooper, a 27-year-old safari guide with a deep love for wildlife and an unshakable sense of duty. But within moments, the routine of the morning would give way to a tragedy that would haunt his family, colleagues, and the conservation community forever. Sheldon had joined the lodge less than a year earlier, quickly earning admiration for his kindness, sharp wit, and profound respect for animals. He was more than a guide. He was a storyteller, a photographer, a writer, and an advocate for inclusive conservation. His quirky humor and infectious smile left a lasting impression on everyone he met, and his commitment to giving opportunities to less privileged South Africans made him a beloved figure both inside and outside the lodge. On August 18, 2020, Sheldon was tasked with inspecting the lodge's perimeter fence after reports that elephants had breached the area during the night. Accompanied by a co-worker, he ventured into the wild, unaware that the morning held a deadly encounter. They soon came upon a herd of 9 elephants, 3 adult females, and 6 calves grazing and moving with quiet authority. Despite the distance of roughly 20 meters, the proximity to the young elephants was perilously close. Then, without warning, one of the adult females charged. Maternal instincts flared into deadly force. Sheldon was struck by her tusks, the impact piercing his knee and fatally wounding him just above the heart. In the chaos, he somehow remained conscious long enough to call his girlfriend, Rebecca Rolls, a fellow lodge employee. She rushed to his side, holding him as life slipped away, a desperate attempt to save him that ended in heartbreak. The lodge initially stated he had died within 20 minutes, but his father, Gordon Hooper, later revealed that records indicated it took 42 minutes, raising haunting questions about the response time. Adding to the anguish was the knowledge that Sheldon was mere meters from the lodge's royal suite when attacked, and that the elephant responsible had targeted 10 other people in recent weeks. Why no preventive measures had been taken weighed heavily on his family. The Hoopers were determined to uncover the truth. Sheldon had gone on a fence inspection unarmed with necessary tools, and they refused to accept that his death was simply a tragic accident. The lodge commissioned an independent investigation, yet Gordon doubted its objectivity. Undeterred, he conducted his own meticulous reconstruction, piecing together Sheldon's phone records, emails, and messages to understand the events leading to the fatal encounter. Despite their appeals, the lodge refused to revise its official account. The pain for Gordon and his wife Cindy was more than grief. It was trauma, the kind that cuts deep into the soul of a parent. Determined not to let Sheldon's death be in vain, they launched the Sheldon Hooper Little 5 Million Foundation, a mission to make conservation more inclusive, continuing the work that had defined his life. Sheldon's memory lives on through every life touched by the foundation, and in the hearts of those who knew him, a young man with a boundless spirit, taken too soon in a tragedy that his family believes could have been prevented. A split-second decision, a predator lying in wait, a tragedy that unfolded in front of horrified onlookers. On a scorching day in July 2016, a family's trip to Badaling Wildlife Park in Beijing took a terrifying and deadly turn. The park, known for its drive-through safari experience, allows visitors to observe Siberian tigers up close from the supposed safety of their vehicles. But one simple mistake, one moment of letting their guard down, turned a routine drive into a horrific nightmare caught on camera. It all began with an argument. Inside their car, tensions flared between a woman, later identified as Zhao, and her companions. Frustrated, she did something unthinkable. She opened the car door and stepped out into the tiger enclosure, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond the tree line. She barely had time to react. From the shadows, a massive Siberian tiger exploded into motion. With lightning speed, the 400-pound predator lunged, clamping its powerful jaws onto Zhao's body and dragging her away before anyone could intervene. Screams filled the air. Panic erupted inside the car. A man and another woman, later identified as Zhao's mother, jumped out, desperate to save her. But in the wild, no act of heroism goes unpunished. As Zhao's mother sprinted toward her daughter, a second tiger struck. This one was even faster, stronger, and more brutal. The massive beast took her down with bone-crushing force, mauling her in front of the helpless onlookers. Unlike Zhao, she would not survive. Surveillance cameras captured everything. The footage, later leaked onto social media, showed the horrifying attack unfold in real time. The sheer force of the tiger's ambush was enough to leave even seasoned wildlife experts stunned. Viewers watched in disbelief as the animals dragged their victims into the underbrush, disappearing from sight. By the time park officials and emergency responders arrived, it was too late. Zhao, though critically injured, had miraculously survived the attack. Her mother, however, had been mauled to death, her selfless attempt to save her daughter costing her everything. In the aftermath, questions swirled. Park rules clearly stated that visitors must remain inside their vehicles at all times, windows up, doors locked. Yet, Zhao claimed she never knew what she had signed before entering the park. She later stated that she believed the form was a standard entry registration, not an agreement that explicitly warned of the danger. To make matters worse, Zhao accused the park of failing to intervene. She alleged that a park official, stationed in a nearby vehicle, failed to come to her rescue, a claim that sparked outrage across China. The tragedy served as a grim reminder of the unforgiving nature of the wild. Siberian tigers are among the most lethal predators on Earth, capable of taking down prey many times their size. Once they lock onto a target, there is no escape. A simple mistake, a fatal miscalculation, and a mother who gave her life in a desperate bid to save her daughter from the jaws of death. The tiger enclosure at Badaling Wildlife Park remains open, but those who pass through now do so with a chilling awareness. One wrong move could mean the difference between life and death. In June 2015, Catherine Chappell, a 29-year-old visual effects editor from New York, arrived in South Africa with a mission. She wasn't there as a typical tourist. Her goal was bigger, more purposeful, to spend 2 weeks volunteering at a wildlife sanctuary that focused on protecting endangered species like rhinos and elephants. With a camera in hand and a heart full of passion for animals and nature, she dreamed of eventually creating a documentary that would expose the horrors of animal poaching. For her, this trip was more than an escape. It was the beginning of something meaningful. Catherine had always lived with a deep sense of adventure. Her work in film had taken her across continents, from Europe to Japan, and more recently to Canada, where she had worked on major productions, including HBO's Game of Thrones. But as impressive as her professional journey was, it was her curiosity about the natural world and her drive to protect it that defined her most. On that fateful day, Catherine decided to take a break from her volunteering duties to experience one of South Africa's popular wildlife attractions, the Lion Park, just outside Johannesburg. The park offers visitors the rare opportunity to see lions up close from the safety of their vehicles. It's the kind of thrill that leaves a lasting impression, but with such proximity comes strict rules. Chief among them, never open your windows. Catherine joined a guided drive through the reserve, likely excited at the chance to get some clear photographs of the majestic animals she admired so much. The lions wandered freely within the park, used to the presence of humans and vehicles, but still very much wild at heart. At some point during the drive, her window was rolled down, just enough to allow her camera to capture the moment. What happened next was sudden and devastating. A lioness approached the vehicle. In a split second, the calm of the scene was shattered. The animal lunged through the open window and attacked. The driver, reportedly a local tour operator, tried to intervene and was seriously injured in the process. Despite the efforts, Catherine was fatally wounded. The attack shocked the world and made headlines across international media. It was a tragic end to a journey that had been filled with hope, compassion, and purpose. Officials at the Lion Park confirmed the attack and reiterated the importance of keeping vehicle windows closed at all times. Sadly, it was not the first such incident the park had seen. Earlier that year, an Australian tourist had been bitten by a lion under similar circumstances. A teenager had also been attacked by a cheetah after entering the park on a bicycle. Yet another reminder of how unpredictable and powerful wild animals can be. Following Catherine's death, the lioness involved in the incident was not euthanized, but was removed from public areas. The park reinforced its safety rules, emphasizing once again the line that separates humans from the wild, and how crucial it is not to cross it even with good intentions. Catherine's story became more than just a tragic headline. It served as a lesson on the thin line between admiration and intrusion when it comes to wildlife. She had come to South Africa to protect animals, to tell their story, and to help preserve their future. Ironically and tragically, her passion for that world brought her too close to it. Her family, friends, and those who followed her work remember her not only as a talented visual artist, but as someone who wanted to make a difference. Her journey, though heartbreakingly short, continues to inspire conversations about conservation, responsible tourism, and the wild beauty that, for all its wonder, still demands caution and respect. Catherine's legacy lives on as a reminder. When we enter the natural world, we are visitors, guests in a space that doesn't belong to us, and even the most noble intentions must be paired with awareness, humility, and care. It was a warm Sunday morning in South Africa's Pilanesberg National Park, the sun casting golden light over the rolling plains and the remnants of an ancient volcanic crater. For Carlos Luna, a 43-year-old tourist from Bahia de los Caballeros, Spain, it seemed like the perfect day. Camera in hand, he scanned the horizon, searching for the perfect shot, an image that would capture the raw, untamed beauty of the African wilderness. He had no idea that within moments, the serenity of the morning would erupt into chaos. Carlos had traveled to South Africa with his fiancée, eager to experience the park's renowned wildlife firsthand. Accompanying them were two of her local friends, who were equally excited to explore Pilanesberg's vast expanse of over 320 square miles. The park was a sanctuary of life, home to Africa's most iconic animals: elephants, lions, leopards, rhinos, and every inch of it seemed alive with movement, color, and sound. The day promised adventure, discovery, and unforgettable moments, but it also carried a silent, invisible danger that Carlos would soon confront. Entering the park through the Bukatla Gate, the group immediately felt immersed in the wilderness. Every turn of the vehicle revealed breathtaking landscapes, ancient rock formations, and signs of the animals that called this place home. Not long into their drive, the group came across a breeding herd of elephants gathered near a glistening lake. From the safety of the vehicle, Carlos watched, mesmerized, as the massive creatures drank, splashed water, and gently nudged their young. The sunlight glinted off their wrinkled hides, highlighting the majesty and scale of these gentle giants. For a moment, it felt like time had slowed until Carlos saw an opportunity he could not resist. Ignoring the protests of his fiancée and the clear warnings posted throughout the park, Carlos stepped out of the vehicle. His heart raced with excitement as he inched closer, determined to capture a close-up photograph that would immortalize the elephant's grace. At the center of the herd stood a matriarch, a massive 3.5-ton female, her eyes sharp and watchful. Flanking her were 2 enormous bulls and 3 vulnerable calves. The matriarch exuded calm authority, but every muscle in her massive frame was alert, and her protective instincts were ready to spring into action. As Carlos drew nearer, the tranquility shattered. The matriarch's gaze locked onto him, sensing a potential threat to her young. In a heartbeat, she charged, her enormous feet pounding the earth like thunder. The 2 bulls followed, and the air seemed to vibrate with their raw power. Carlos froze for a fraction of a second, then panic surged. He tried to retreat, screaming for help, but the herd's speed and strength were overwhelming. Within moments, he was overtaken. The matriarch's massive frame collided with him, and he was thrown to the ground, trampled beneath their enormous feet. What followed was a scene of unimaginable horror. Clothing and personal items were scattered across the grass. The marks of the stampede etched the earth, and those inside the vehicle could only watch, paralyzed by fear and disbelief. The air was thick with the sounds of thundering footsteps and desperate cries. Park rangers arrived within minutes, but the elephants, having neutralized the perceived threat, melted back into the dense bush. Emergency responders tried their best, but by the time help reached him, it was too late. Carlos Luna's life had been claimed in the blink of an eye. Elephants, especially when young calves are present, are among the most fiercely protective animals in the world. A female can weigh up to 4 tons and charge at speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour, while bulls are even taller and stronger, capable of causing devastating injuries without hesitation. Their intelligence and strong social bonds make them vigilant guardians, reacting instinctively to any potential threat. In that fleeting, terrifying moment, Carlos had underestimated the raw power of these gentle giants. In the aftermath, officials from the Northwest Parks and Tourism Board expressed their deepest condolences, emphasizing that park regulations exist for one reason: to protect both humans and wildlife. Signs warning visitors to remain inside vehicles are not mere suggestions, they are lifelines, and ignoring them can lead to fatal consequences. Conservation officers highlighted the tragedy as a stark lesson. Even the most serene-looking animals can turn deadly when provoked or threatened. For those who knew him, Carlos was more than a tourist or photographer. He was a passionate adventurer, someone who lived to capture the wonders of the world through his lens. His death sent shockwaves through his family, friends, and the global community of wildlife enthusiasts. It was a reminder that nature, as beautiful as it is uncompromising and unforgiving, and that one misstep, one moment of overconfidence, can change everything. Carlos Luna's pursuit of the perfect photograph had ended in tragedy, leaving behind grief, unanswered questions, and an indelible warning about the untamed power of the wild. A dream birthday, a peaceful river safari, and then pure terror erupting from the depths. It was December 1st, 2018, Kristen Yaldor's 37th birthday. She and her husband, Ryan, had set out for what was supposed to be a relaxing canoe trip down Zimbabwe's Zambezi River, a place known for its breathtaking beauty and rich wildlife. The guided tour promised calm waters and stunning photo opportunities near Victoria Falls, but nature had other plans. They had barely begun when one of the guides called out, a warning lost in the stillness of the river. Something massive surged from below. In an instant, their canoe lurched violently, flipping over as if it had been struck by an underwater explosion. Before Kristen could react, she was in the water. Gasping, disoriented, she surfaced just in time to see Ryan desperately swimming toward the shore. She was almost there too, just 5 strokes away from safety, but then it happened. A force like a wrecking ball clamped onto her right leg and yanked her under. The pain hadn't hit yet. Shock, adrenaline, survival instincts. The water churned as the unseen monster rag-dolled her side to side, its massive jaws crushing down like a hydraulic press. She had dived with sharks before. She knew not to panic. Hold your breath. Stay calm. She reached for the creature's jaw, her fingers brushing against its rough, prehistoric skin. For a moment, it loosened its grip. Was she free? Had she scared it off? Then, agony. Kristen clawed her way to the riverbank, her broken leg sending white-hot pain through her body. The severity of her injuries was unknown, but the crimson stain spreading into the water told her everything she needed to know. A guide wrapped a tourniquet around her leg. Ryan, hands shaking, tried to call for help. Across the river, tourists, safe in their vehicles, had stopped watching animals. Now, they were watching her. Kristen borrowed Ryan's phone. She dialed home. It was 2 a.m. in Florida, but her mother answered. "Do you want me to sing you happy birthday?" "No, Mom," Kristen whispered. "I got attacked by a hippo." For those who have never seen a hippo up close, its bite is the stuff of nightmares. Its jaws open to a horrifying 150-degree angle, revealing 3 dozen dagger-like teeth, including massive canines designed to crush bone and tear through flesh. A hippo's bite force is strong enough to snap a canoe in half, and it had nearly done just that. Kristen survived. But the scars, physical and psychological, would last forever. The Zambezi had given her a birthday she would never forget, and a reason to never trust calm waters again. In the summer of 2017, Carol Sue Kirkin from Rochester Hills, Michigan, set out on what was meant to be a memorable family vacation to Tanzania. The plan was a classic African safari, a chance to explore the wild landscapes and experience nature's majesty up close. For Carol, 75 years old, this trip was more than just a holiday. It was an adventure, a celebration of life, and time spent with loved ones in a faraway land. Carol was no ordinary traveler. She was a woman known in her community for her kindness, strength, and dedication to helping others. As a founding member of the Rochester Area Women's Fund, she had spent years supporting initiatives aimed at empowering women. She also volunteered frequently at the North Oakland YMCA, where she worked to support military families. Her spirit was generous, and her impact deeply felt by those who knew her. This trip was, in many ways, a reflection of her adventurous soul, someone who embraced life fully and sought to create meaningful experiences wherever she went. The family's safari took place in the stunning landscapes of Tanzania, where wildlife roams free and the natural world reveals itself in spectacular ways. But what began as an exciting expedition quickly turned tragic. On August 5th, during a moment near the waterside, Carol was attacked by a hippopotamus, one of the continent's most powerful and unpredictable animals. The encounter was sudden and devastating, and despite the presence and efforts of her son, who was with her at the time, Carol succumbed to her injuries. She passed away in his arms, a heartbreaking end to a journey meant to celebrate life. News of Carol's death spread quickly through her hometown and beyond, leaving friends, family, and community members in shock. Those who knew her described her as a force of nature, someone who quietly inspired others through her actions rather than words. Her loss was felt deeply, a stark reminder of how fragile life can be, especially when faced with the raw unpredictability of the wild. In the aftermath, social media became a place where loved ones shared memories and offered condolences. Tributes poured in, speaking of Carol's warmth, her willingness to support others, and the way she took those around her under her wing. Many noted that she had a unique way of encouraging people to find their own path. She didn't dictate what to see or think, but helped others learn to look at the world through their own eyes. The tragedy also sparked conversations about the inherent risks involved in wildlife safaris. While safaris offer unforgettable encounters with nature, they also come with dangers that can't be ignored. Hippos, despite their seemingly slow and docile appearance, are among Africa's most aggressive animals, responsible for more human fatalities than many other species. Carol's death underscored the importance of vigilance and respect for wildlife behavior, reminding travelers that even the most seasoned adventurers are vulnerable in the wild. Her passing was not just a loss to her family, but also to the community she served so passionately. Carol left behind her husband, Bill, their 3 children, and 5 grandchildren. The legacy she built through her volunteer work and her genuine care for others remains alive, continuing to inspire those who carry her memory forward. Carol Sue Kirkin's story is a poignant mix of adventure and tragedy. It's a tale that highlights the beauty and unpredictability of the natural world, and the importance of approaching it with both wonder and caution. It also tells of a life well lived, a woman who embraced every moment with generosity and courage, leaving behind a legacy that reaches far beyond the boundaries of her own life. Her journey to Africa was meant to be a celebration, a time of connection with family and nature, but it also became a solemn reminder of how quickly things can change when the wild asserts its power. Carlos Carvalho had spent decades behind the camera, capturing the breathtaking beauty of nature through his lens. An award-winning cinematographer, he had traveled across continents, working with both actors and wildlife, and had learned to navigate unpredictable environments with remarkable skill. Filming in the wild was never without risk, but Carlos had faced countless challenges before and emerged unscathed. On May 2, 2018, at the Glen Africa Country Lodge in South Africa, Carlos was shooting scenes for a feature film, focusing his camera on a giraffe named Gerald. The day had been smooth. The main filming was complete. The animal wranglers had moved the giraffe off set, and the crew was winding down. But Carlos, ever the perfectionist, decided to capture some final shots on his own, drawn to the towering presence of Gerald, nearly 18 feet tall, with a graceful yet imposing frame. Giraffes are usually seen as gentle giants, but male giraffes have a behavior called necking, where they swing their heads with astonishing force to assert dominance. At that moment, Gerald bent his long neck, spread his legs slightly, and struck with devastating precision. Carlos was caught off guard. The impact hit him square in the head, sending him flying through the air. He crashed to the ground unconscious, blood streaming from his eyes and ears, an unmistakable sign of severe trauma. Crew members watched in horror as it unfolded, unable to intervene in time. Paramedics rushed to the scene, and Carlos was airlifted to Mill Park Hospital in Johannesburg. Doctors fought tirelessly to stabilize him, but the injuries were too severe. That evening, at 8:50 p.m., Carlos succumbed to the trauma, leaving the film industry and those who knew him in stunned grief. Colleagues remembered him not only as a masterful cinematographer, but as a kind, passionate storyteller whose work had left an indelible mark on audiences around the world. The Glen Africa Country Lodge expressed deep sorrow over the incident, but emphasized that Gerald had acted naturally. The giraffe was not at fault. An independent investigation was launched, which suggested that Carlos may have approached the animal too closely, though no official report directly blamed him. His death was a tragic reminder that even the gentlest of creatures can turn deadly in an instant, and that the wild, beautiful world he devoted his life to capturing could be as perilous as it was inspiring. In the blink of an eye, a career spent celebrating life in its rawest form ended in heartbreak, leaving behind a legacy of passion, courage, and artistry that would never be forgotten. A seasoned safari ranger, a towering beast in a violent rage, and a tragic ending no one saw coming. In December 2018, Madikwe Game Reserve in South Africa became the scene of a horrifying tragedy when a bull elephant, overcome with uncontrollable aggression, broke through a fence and stormed into a tourist area at Leopard Rock Lodge. Mark Lautenbach, a highly respected guide, wildlife photographer, and one of the most skilled rangers in the country, stepped forward to defuse the situation. But in the unforgiving world of the wild, even the most experienced hands can be powerless against nature's fury. The elephant, a 6-ton bull in musth, a state of heightened aggression caused by surging testosterone levels, was in no mood to be confronted. Witnesses say the massive creature fixated on Mark and, within seconds, charged with deadly intent. The ground trembled under its weight as it bore down on him. Before anyone could react, Mark was struck and trampled repeatedly, suffering catastrophic injuries. Musth makes bull elephants some of the most dangerous animals on Earth, flooding them with up to 6 times their normal testosterone levels, turning them into unstoppable forces of rage. Even female elephants in heat aren't safe during this period, let alone a human trying to intervene. One local expert, speaking under anonymity, described the scene with chilling clarity. Mark was one of the best, a man who understood the wild like few others. But this was something no one could stop. That elephant had made up its mind. Despite Mark's experience and knowledge, nothing could be done once the attack began. The beast left destruction in its wake before rangers made the grim decision to put it down, fearing it would strike again. For the safari community, Mark's loss was more than just a tragedy. It was a stark reminder that no matter how much we learn about nature, it remains an unpredictable, merciless force.